Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College Business Office Open Office Hours trainings. We're going to be looking at Zoom. A little bit earlier, we Kelly and Rachel presented on data security and did a fabulous job. If you missed that, we'll be posting that at some point in the future. And so we've got a couple of other people that are joining us, and we're going to go ahead and take off and get started. But I'll be talking about Zoom and MLF2C. It is a new tool that is available to all of us as staff, faculty, or students in the ASU community. So it is freely available to us. But it is not something that you just go out to zoom.us and start using. There is a way that you need to get into it here at ASU so that you do have the full power of the tool available to you. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into just a couple of things about Zoom. Number one, how do you access, or this is what we'll be covering today, how do I access my Zoom Pro account here at ASU? We'll talk about managing your account settings, your profile, and your settings, and then just kind of some of the Zoom basics, scheduling meetings, inviting others to your Zoom meeting controls, and some different pieces along those lines. And then we'll try to get into answering some of the questions that you might have. They may be a little bit more in depth than what we're able to attend to today, but we'll do our best to answer as much as we possibly can. So thank you all for joining. I appreciate you being here. And so let's dive into talking about, so how do I access my ASU Zoom Pro account? And how do I log into it? What do I do? So if you happen to go out to zoom.us and try logging in, you will go into likely a free account, or you may have set up another account that is not under the ASU category and covered by the ASU license. So there are ways that we need to do that, and ways that we need to behave so that we get to use it for free and have all the advantages of the enterprise level Zoom tool that's been provided. So before I launch too far into that, I do want to give a little bit of history on how Zoom came into being at ASU. We formerly were using a tool that was called Video. Some people called it Video. I fell into that category. And it was a little bit difficult to use. It was a little kludgy. It did the job once you got through all the hoops and everything else. But what ASU was finding that more and more people were migrating away from that and purchasing Zoom and using Zoom on their own with different groups within in different departments and different colleges. And so UTO looked at that, and they looked around at the number of different people that were using it and decided, you know, it makes sense for us to look at doing an enterprise license of Zoom. The video license was coming to an end, so let's look at that and see if that makes sense for us. They did, it did make sense, and so they bought in full bore, and so it is now across the university. It's something that you can embed into your courses in Canvas. You can use with students. And there are some caveats and things that that you need to be aware of, but for the most part, it is a system that is across the ASU community, and we can all use it. So how do I go about getting Zoom? One way is to install it on your ASU own device. And to do that, if you log into My ASU and go to My Apps, or on your computer, there is a tool that is called Software Center on your Windows devices. and I should have looked for this before. I used Mac, and so I'm never sure where it is on
What are you looking for?
Software Center.
Okay, go down.
Um,
Go down to Microsoft System Center.
Microsoft System Center, okay?
And Software Center.
And there's Software Center. So can you guys see that? All right, so on the Microsoft System Center, you would open up Software Center. That would launch this screen.
I didn't think these were working.
May not. I'm just going to show you where you would find it. You would scroll down, you would find Zoom. Oh, is that there it is. You would click on that, it would go through its download, install process, and take care of you. It's a very similar process on the Mac. For Mac, you go into self-service, and you select that, you find Zoom, and you go through the install process. It'll walk you through it. That is the best way to download and install Zoom on your ASU-owned computer. Any questions about that before I move on? Has anybody out there tried that? You've done it on yours? Okay, wonderful. So kind of what it's going to do, once it installs, it's going to come up and you'll see Zoom load there over on the left-hand side. When you go to open it, there is a set of options. The one you're going to look for to log in is SSO, log in with SSO, that single sign-on. That's what you'll click. And then the next screen will show you and ask you to enter your company's domain. And you simply put in ASU and then hit enter, and it takes you and logs you into Zoom and gets you started. You'll be directed to the authentication page, the ASU authentication page that you're used to seeing, where you enter your ASU Right ID, your password, and it takes you into that. Sometimes it's going to ask you for Duo. Once you do that, it will also bring you to a screen that looks a little scary. It has some text that says, what do you want to do if this tool updates? Do you want to just keep it? Do you want to go in and have it, do you want it to ask you what kinds of information you want to share? Just select, go with the default option that's on there and go through and log in and you'll be just fine. And that gets you into Zoom, the desktop app, and will get you started. You can also go into using Zoom in your browser, in Chrome or in Firefox. I would tend to go to one of those two before Safari or some of the other ones because you have a much more stable experience on those two browser interfaces. So you go to https://asu.zoom.us. It's really important that you have that ASU in front of the zoom.us. Otherwise, you'll go into just the regular one and it's not going to ask you to log in with the SSO. You select the login button, you'll be directed to the ASU authentication page. You'll be asked again for the dual authentication. You go through that process. Now, the first time you log in, you'll get that information release consent form, which is what I was talking about earlier. You can select the Do Not Ask Me Again radio button and then select Accept. And then you should be logged into your Zoom Enterprise account and get moving forward. Now, once you're in there, there are a couple of things that I wanted to show you on here so that you kind of have an idea of how to maneuver once you're in and you're running a meeting. There are a few items over on the left-hand side. There's a mute or unmute your microphone. There's an adjust or test your audio settings. So if you're not able to hear somebody or they're not able to hear you, this is where you're going to go. You're going to click on this little caret or this little arrow, it'll pop up a dialog box that you'll be able to select items from. I'm going to hover over that. Are you guys able to see that out there when I hover over? Is there any black screen that pops up?
No.
You don't see that? Okay. Anyway, there are different options that are found under that. So you can select just different microphone options or different speaker options so that you can toggle between those and see if one of those will work for you. You can also adjust the video or select a different video camera. It may be that the computer that you're on doesn't have a video camera installed, and so you're not able to join by video, and that's okay. You'll just be able to watch what's on the screen. People won't be able to see you. Also, I'm going to go back to the audio part. If you get to a point where you don't have a microphone, you can't get any of the microphones installed, instead of just jumping out of the meeting and not joining at all, there is a call-in option that is available to you on most meetings when they're set up. And when I go into the settings, I'll show you how to make that available to everybody when you set your meeting up. But call on the phone and that will give you a different audio option to join the meeting with, and people can hear you talk, and then you can also hear them through the phone. You can also invite people if that option is available to you, and that's something that you can do in your settings. You can manage your participants. You can mute them, unmute them. You can assign somebody to host or co-host. You can, co-host. You can also allow them to record or not record. You can remove or place them on hold. So that's where you would manage your participants by using that option. I'm using the share feature right now, and I'm sharing my desktop, my screen. So anything that I do, you would be able to see, but you can also do specific windows. So if you have a bunch of different applications open, you can select one specific item that you want everybody to see, and they wouldn't be able to see any of the other things that you have open on your computer. So if I were to go to a different page on the screen right now, you would be able to see anything that I pulled up because I'm sharing the entire desktop with you. There's also a chat option that is available, and you would click on that option to allow you to go to the chat window, to close it, to open it up. You can chat in a meeting with individuals, or you can chat with the entire group. You can send private messages to the person who is leading the session or who is hosting the session, and those types of things. Down at the bottom is also an option to end the meeting, and that's where you would click to end it for everybody. If you happen to be recording the session, when you end the meeting, it stops the recording, and it also begins to process the recording for you and will return it to wherever it needs to go, wherever you've selected, either if you've selected to have it record locally, or if you've had it selected to record to the cloud, it'll go to one of those places. All right, so I'm going to go back a page, and I'm going to jump out to actually, I'm going to jump out here and see if it will allow me to do this. You guys see my Zoom screen now?
No.
Are you? May not be able to do it this way. We have to go out to the. This may be a shorter training than it's anticipated. So I'm going to go out to my profile. Hopefully, you'll be able to see this. You guys see my ugly mug there?
Yes.
All right, good. You affirm that I'm ugly. That's really nice of you. Thank you. So I'm in my profile now. So how I got to that is in my Zoom screen when I'm logged in, I'm able to click on my face, or the little icon that's up in the right-hand corner that allows me to go out and view my, my profile and do a few things within there. So this is my current profile picture, and I encourage you all to put your image in there, because if you don't, it's going to show a little kind of a shadow image and not really have you in there. Anytime you're on a call, it will show either your name if you're logged in, or it'll show a just kind of a blank screen. If I were not sharing my screen, and if I had my video muted, if I stopped the video, it would show my image in there. And so people would recognize that's who was talking. They would see my face. So that's probably a good idea. And to do that, you would just, you can go in and click on that and edit that. You can also click on edit and change any of the information that's here as far as your name and your company. So I've got Rick Baker in here. I can select my country and region. I can put my phone number in here if I chose to do that. And then I would put Arizona State, Mary Lou Fulton, Arizona State University, Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College is what I chose to put in there. So, and then I click on Save Changes, and that saves it for me. There's a personal meeting ID that is in there. This is a number that is specific to you. You can change that and put, some people have suggested that you put your phone number in there. You can do that. Just recognize that if somebody knows your phone number, they can call your personal meeting on Zoom at any time that they choose to do that. And there are some kind of, I don't want to call them security concerns, but I call them privacy concerns with doing that, because anybody can drop into any of your personal meetings that you would be having, or any meeting that you would be having in your personal meeting space. So there's some ways to mitigate that, and I'll mention those today. But to do that, you would simply go into edit, and you would put that information in here, and it is in the format of a phone number. So that's why a lot of people say to use your phone number and put that in there, because it's easy to remember. You'll know that, and you can spout it off to anybody that you need to spout it out with. You can also select, use my personal meeting ID for instant meetings. So if you just dive into a meeting real quick, if you have that selected, it will default to using that for you. So you set that within your profile. You can also add a personal link in here. I've not set that yet. But a personal link is an alias for your personal meeting URL. It can be, it has to be between 5 and 40 characters, or 5 to 40 characters. And so you could get creative and put information in there. And again, I'm going to say, when we did the Slack training a couple of weeks ago, I kind of pressed in hard on this idea that this is a professional tool. And so anything that you put in here needs to be professional, and you need to treat this tool as such, a professional tool that you would have professional conversations on. So keep that in mind, and I think that will help us be safe with using the tool. The user type that I have is a pro account. So if you're in here and you're looking at your profile and you notice that it doesn't say pro account, you're in an account that is not your ASU account. Okay, so that's another indication for you to look at. Also, just below that, you see capacity. The capacity is set at 300, so you can have up to 300 people join, or you can have a meeting with just yourself, or you can have a meeting with one other person. I did a meeting. I wanted to share a quick tip with somebody the other day, and I couldn't get a hold of them, so I just opened up a Zoom meeting real quick and did a record of the meeting, did a screen share of what I was trying to show them what to do, and did a quick and easy kind of a slide share for them recorded that. When it was over, I ended it. I had that meeting recorded. Then I shared that link out to that person so that they could see how to do that certain tip. So that's something that you can do on your own. You can go in and practice that way. You can see what you look like to see if there are any odd things that you do when you do a session, and kind of make you aware of what that is. Notice I have my language set to English. You can edit that and select whatever you wish for it to be, and that would impact any of the messages that you send out to people as far as your invitations to meetings and things. I encourage you to go in and set the date and time, your time zone. Notice I have mine set to Arizona, and my date format that I prefer is month, day, year. And then the time format, I'm using the 24-hour time format because I have difficulty with remembering what 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. is, and that helps me out. And I can also connect to a calendar. So I've got mine connected to my Microsoft Outlook, which in Outlook, I'm able to go into my calendar. I can set up a meeting, and then I can add Zoom to that meeting. I don't even have to go into Zoom. It will go out, automatically do that for me. And so,
So if you invite people on that calendar invite, they see the Zoom link?
yes, as
Okay.
long as you engage Zoom and you add that from your calendar, you'll see it up at the top on your top ribbon of Outlook if you've added it to
That
yeah.
invite, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Okay, and then the sign-in password, the host key, those kinds of things you can go ahead and look at. The sign-in password I would leave alone. The host key, you can edit that so that the host key that it sends out or when you're joining something by phone, you have that information. And if you ever want to make sure that you get signed out from every device, like if I went out, if I left this open when I leave today and I forgot and I'm halfway home and or I get home and I think, oh man, I left that open, I can go in here and I can select this sign me out of all devices. So wherever I'm logged into Zoom, on whatever device it is, my mobile phone, my work laptop, my home computer, or any one of the conference rooms that I've been in, I can go in and select this sign me out from all devices. If I do that right now, we would lose all of our connections, so I'm not going to do that. So we'll see. Join meeting, host meeting, solutions. We'll go ahead and minimize that right now. And there's a little cog up here that you guys apparently can't see, but for those of you in the room, you can see there's a cog that is for settings. When you go into Zoom, you'll be able to see that. Daisy, can you, I don't know if you can hover over and see on your end, but there's a little cog that is for settings. And when I click on that, can you guys see that at all?
Yes,
You can see the general video, audio, chat, and all of that,
yes.
and an application. Wonderful. I can breathe a sigh of relief. Sorry, I should have tried this earlier to make sure everything was going to work as expected, but this is perfect. So I selected that little cog, and just so you'll know, it looks like this on your Zoom screen. And then I have all of these different options. Anything that I set here and save here will become the default for any meeting that I set up. So I think it's important to recognize that. Otherwise, you'll have options to set some basic things when you go into a meeting and you schedule a meeting and give you options. But if you want to go deeper and get into some of the more advanced kinds of things for Zoom, this is where you go. You go into settings, and I would do that and kind of play around with these settings and go in and see what it looks and feels like with somebody that's friendly that you can practice with and see how it behaves. But I'm going to take you just kind of through these and give you some tips and pointers, if that's okay, and give you some ideas on what to do and what not to do. Before I jump into that, were there any questions on profile that you had?
No.
Okay, any questions in here on profile? All right. Pacing, are you guys okay with where we're going and how we're doing? Do I need to go faster? Are you excited to get to this next part? All right, I'll just be quiet and we'll move forward. So some of the things that I have selected, when I open a Zoom meeting, what do I want? How do I want it to start off? This is when I log in. And start Zoom when I start Windows. If I'm on my Mac, it would say, it would recognize that. And so when do you want Zoom to start out as far as the application is concerned, the app? Do you want it to start when you start Windows so that it's there and available anytime so somebody can call you up, or you can just reach out and start a meeting with somebody? You don't have to search for it and turn it on. So I've got that selected so that anytime I start Windows up, Zoom is going to be there, started up and ready for me. I can also choose to silently start Zoom when I start Windows. And actually, those are predetermined for me. And I think that is set by ASU. Notice how those are a different color blue than everything else. And I think that means that ASU has that set as a global setting. So it's going to start in Windows anytime you start Windows. When closed, minimize window to the notification area instead of the taskbar. That's selected on mine. And to tell you the truth, I should have just skipped over that because I didn't study up on that one and I can't really tell you what that means. So sorry. The automatically copy invitation URL to the clipboard after the meeting starts, so that if somebody sends you a message and says on Slack maybe and says, hey, I can't get into the Zoom meeting, what is it? You can quickly go into Slack and just hit paste and it will be there for you. So it copies that into your clipboard and it sets it up. And that's kind of a nifty tool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. The thing that I need to be aware of though is if I have copied something that I want, that I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to paste this in during the meeting, so I want that on my clipboard so I can do that. This is just taking the place of that if I have that selected. So that's something to be mindful of and think through about having that setting in. And I think that's why I selected not to do that. So I'm going to go back to that. And then confirm with me when I leave a meeting. So if I accidentally hit end meeting, it's going to come up and say, are you sure you want to leave this meeting? And then I can say yes and confirm that. If I don't have that selected, it's just going to take you out of the meeting and you'll have to rejoin. And you should be able to rejoin the meeting unless you've been removed by the host, and the host has it set for you not to be able to rejoin. So we'll get to that in a few minutes. And then we have it set to remind me 5 minutes before my upcoming meetings. It'll pop up a message to you and say, hey, you have a Zoom meeting that is starting in a few minutes. So those are all kind of application settings that you'll want to go in and consider how you want that to behave. If you are wondering you want some deeper information about that, you can go out to zoom.us and go to support and look for application settings, and it will take you in and give you ad nauseum information about application settings. So there's some great information there, and I encourage you to go there. In fact, at the end of this presentation, I've got some links out to that I'll share with you. So for content sharing, when I'm on my home computer, I use dual monitors. In my office, not my home computer, but in my office computer, I have dual monitors, and I have that typically set to use dual monitors. In this scenario, it's deselected because it recognized I only have one monitor, and that's all we're using here, so it's not using that feature. I can also have it enter full screen automatically when starting or joining a meeting, and then it puts everything else behind and brings that to the front. That can be problematic for you if you have things that you need to get to, and you're not sharing everything. So you can decide if that's a good setting for you or not. I don't typically use that because a lot of times I have other things, I have multiple things open at the same time so that I can meander around and show different things during the meeting. So I do have it set, however, to enter full screen automatically when viewing a screen shared by others. And that way it brings it up larger and makes it easier for me to see. And I'm not trying to fiddle around and try to make the settings exactly what I need to be able to see it during the presentation that somebody is sharing with me. So the maximize, I don't think is something, maximizing the screen is kind of when it takes over the whole thing. Full screen is it's going to fill that entire screen that you're sharing. Scale to fit my Zoom window when viewing screens shared by others is an important tool to utilize. So go ahead and select that one. And that way it keeps you from having to fiddle with things when somebody shares something. The graphics GPU is the graphics processing unit acceleration. So enable screen sharing when you have that acceleration available. A lot of times, or sometimes you'll be in a meeting and you can't do a screen share. It may be that the machine that you're on or the other person is on is not allowing that because it doesn't have enough power to drive the screen share. So if you're having issues with that, that may be what's causing it and what's behind that particular issue. You can also enable the remote control of all applications. So if you want somebody to take control of your computer screen, anything that you're sharing, you can allow them to do that in any application that you have open. They would be able to go in and do that. So it may be that if we needed to troubleshoot something on your computer, we may be able to utilize that to go in and help you do that. So be careful with sharing that tool with anybody. And it's not something I set as a default because I don't want somebody going in and doing those types of things. But you can also
my screen.
say that
My Mac settings don't have those options.
it doesn't have those options. Okay. Interesting. And that's probably because we're on a Windows box. Yeah. So and thank you for bringing that up because the settings on Mac and Windows are going to be a little bit different. So get in, look at those, and play with them again. Going out to zoom.us and talking about and searching for content sharing in settings will give you kind of, again, a detailed list of the different types of things that you can and can't do using that. So I'm not going to go over the rest of these. I am going to show you some of the advanced features. Oh, it's going out to... well, it's wanting to open that in Explorer or Edge, and it's back here behind, and it is not allowing me to see that. Sorry. So That's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So anytime that you go to the advanced settings, it is going to pop you out to the to your web browser to do that. On this particular machine, the web browser is Microsoft Edge, which I'm not excited about, but it is what it is. And so, and I'm not going to be able, all right, I'm going to close this just so we can go through some of these and talk about them. So in this particular screen, this is, these are some of the settings that I really kind of wanted to show you for sure. And that is, so how do you, yeah, so when I set up my defaults, I don't want to start my video when I am starting a meeting. I want my host video to be off. I want participants' videos to be off because I don't want to be caught off guard as I'm starting that up. And sometimes I've got my face down in the screen and I don't want anybody to have to look at me up close like that. And so I start with those off, and I recommend that you all do that as well. And the participants video, I like that to be off as well because I'd like for them to have the choice of whether or not they want the video to be off. The other option I select is telephone and computer audio. When I send out my invitation, this gives both of it gives the detail for both of those options in that invitation. And so you want to provide the greatest opportunity of availability as you can for each of your meetings. So you can select those. If you want to do it all over telephone, you can do that as well. And it will give you all of the information for how to call into the meeting, set up the meeting, the host information, the participant information, very much like you would for the Cisco lines that we currently have. One of the things that has been discussed, and I think they're moving toward this as far as UTO for all of ASU, is getting away from the other conference lines that we have and moving everything to Zoom because it does have the option of doing telephone and computer options for us. So those are all items that that are.
I have a question on the phone. So if they're joining us on phone, then that limits their chat box. We can't respond. It's not like they can text in a chat, correct?
But if they're only on their phone,
Yes.
yes. And so they wouldn't be able to text in unless they're joining with a smartphone and they have their and they have Zoom up on their smartphone or their mobile device. They may be able to do some chat within there. It will be a little bit cumbersome for them, but the option is still there for them to do it. But if they're calling in from the phone, they're not going to be able to chat. And they'll use the normal kind of like the mute would be *6 and those kinds of things. So it very much becomes kind of the telephone audio interface that they're using at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And sometimes you need to fail back to using the phone because you can't get your microphone to work for the session. You can go ahead and join the visual portion of the meeting, the video portion of the meeting on your computer and just dial in with your phone. So you have that option to do as well. And then you would have the chat feature as part of the video option and because you're in the meeting that way. Does that make sense? Okay, I kind of see your head nodding. So, so I think we went over quite a number of these already in Meeting Basic. The option we're getting into some of the more advanced kinds of things here. So chat, I can prevent participants from saving the chat. So if anybody that's in the session, if we have a chat session going on, they can go in and copy all of that unless I select this prevent participants from saving chat. So if you are very protective of the information that potentially could be shared in any of your meetings, you'll probably want to go in and select prevent participants from saving the chat, because once they've saved that out, they can choose to do anything with that they wish and can share that with whoever they want to. So be mindful of that. That is a setting that if you make chat available you can select that option for not allowing them to save that chat. However, if you do want them to save the chat, deselect it. You can also choose to allow participants to chat with one another privately, or you can turn that off. You can also choose to play sound when participants join or leave the meeting. I really don't have a lot to share about that other than it's a way of alerting you if you've got a large meeting going on and you want to know if somebody else joins. That's a nice tool to have enabled. You can have it just so the host hears it, or you can have it so everybody in the meeting can hear it, or you can also select the, or you can turn that off so it doesn't make a sound at all. You can also, for those on the telephone, you can have them state their name when they call in, and it will say who they are as they join the meeting, and you would select that option. So if you want to be able to share files during the session, you would turn that option on, and that would allow anybody in the meeting to share files through chat. So some caveats in there. If you, I would use that only if you trust everybody in the meeting to share appropriate information and to share files that would not potentially be contain viruses or those types of things. So keep that in mind. Also, display end of meeting experience feedback survey. I got that turned on, so if we had a bad connection or those kinds of things, it'll come up, it'll give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and you can let Zoom know how the meeting experience was so that they can do something with that. I can also have a survey at the end so you guys can tell me that this was anything that went wrong, and that will be transmitted as well. If I want somebody to co-host the meeting with me, I can select that option, and I can add or give the same controls that I have to the co-host that would allow them to do anything that I can do. That's very helpful if you're leading a meeting and you don't want to be in charge of all the chat stuff that's coming in. You don't want to have to manage any of those kinds of things. If you make somebody a co-host, they can manage all of that off screen in another place. So that's a good option to have if you're doing kind of quasi-webinars, that type of a thing. You can add polls. So if you wanted to have somebody do a poll, I was on a Zoom meeting that they did that, and it drove me crazy in a training, and so I'm not going to do that here. But again, I'm going to encourage you to go out and play with some of these things and see how those polls work for you. I have selected always show the meeting control bar. That way I don't lose sight of that. I always know where it is. For those people who are in the room with me, they can see it up here at the top, and it is always available to me. Otherwise, if it's not there, I have to go up and hover for a few minutes and it pops down. And I always get nervous that it's not going to pop up. So I left that on for today so that I would have that option and I can show that. I'm going to turn it off. And since my settings have updated, but it's still showing up there, so I'm going to keep it on just for kicks. I have selected show Zoom windows during screen share, and I was hoping that would work for us today, but you guys are not able to see the Zoom windows, so my assumption then is that it is allowing me to see my Zoom windows when I am presenting and I am the host. Okay. So annotation, I have it set so that participants can use the annotation tools to add information to shared screens. So you guys could jump in and annotate my screen right now and just frustrate me like crazy. So Daisy, keep your hands away from the mouse. There's a whiteboard option. I can choose to turn that on. A whiteboard allows everybody in the meeting, just like if you have a whiteboard up in a room, anybody can come up to the board and make notes and do different things. I can also auto-save those whiteboards so that we don't lose that capture. If I'm recording it, it's going to capture that, but this would be a separate kind of saved JPEG of that whiteboard screen. So I think it's important to keep that information. It's important to come in and make that selection if you think you're using the whiteboard and you want to definitely save that information. Okay. If I want to allow somebody to do remote control, we talked a little bit about that as well. There are options for providing nonverbal feedback. So there are options that you guys can't see up here on the screen that you can go in and select to give me a nonverbal feedback, thumbs up or thumbs down, those types of things. Just recently, it has been added to join different meetings simultaneously on a desktop. So you cannot host 2 meetings at the same time, but you can join 2 meetings at the same time. I'm trying to figure out how and when that's going to be helpful, but there are reasons for that, and I can't think of them right now. And since yesterday afternoon, I can't think of them. So there are reasons for it, and it's been added in, and we've had people ask about that in the past. But I can't recall exactly what the reasoning was. If I actually remove somebody, so if the folks out at West were creating a commotion and we were having a problem with that connection, I could go in and I could manage the participants and I could dislocate them from the meeting, and they would not be able to rejoin unless I had this turned on, and then that would allow them to rejoin, okay?
Does that work just for that meeting? So that if you had another, if you're doing a class and you had another class, they could join the class?
Yeah, if you set it in this area prior to setting up the meeting, these are default settings that will stay on any meeting that you set up. So it'll come through as that. So anything that you start, any new meeting that you start.
I'm just thinking if a student gets kicked out of one, they wouldn't get kicked out of all of them.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't get kicked out of all. It's just that particular meeting that you're having. With the exception of, and I need to check this out. So if you're using, one of the things I didn't talk about is maybe coming up a little bit later. And when I set up a meeting, I can choose to set it up as an ongoing meeting that I can use over and over and over again. Or anytime I set up a meeting, that meeting is good, that meeting code is good for 30 days. If I set it up as an ongoing meeting, that code is good for, that room is good for 365 days. So it's a month versus a year. If it is the instance where somebody has left the meeting, you have it set to they can't rejoin the meeting, and it's within that 30-day period, it may be they can't rejoin that same meeting if you have that set as like an open office hours kind of a thing, that you'll be in there during that period of time. So something to think about. That's a very good point and something I'll need to research and figure out how that works. I can use closed captioning. It doesn't mean that it's actually going to do closed captioning during the session, but it will allow somebody to do closed captioning. So if somebody wants to be on and typing as I'm doing this, it would allow for a person to be able to do that, and it would allow somebody else to say closed captions as well. So I can assign somebody the ability to do that. I can use a virtual background. It really works better with a Mac than it does on a Windows machine. But if you want to have, like, I think they've got a Golden Gate Bridge virtual background that you can put yourself on. You need to have kind of a uninterrupted color behind you. So like that wall would sort of work, but because it has the white screen, the whiteboard on there, it may kind of flicker and do some weird stuff. But if I've got a solid background behind me, I can choose that option and I can put in whatever background that I want. There are some pre-selected ones. You can also put in your own pictures in there as well. So that's kind of fun. You can play around with that and do some different things with it. I have turned on to identify guest participants in a meeting or a webinar, so it gives me an idea of who is signed on. For the most part, it's going to give me their ASU Write ID if they're logged in and using Zoom as their logged in person. So that's what we're seeing. Also, just kind of going through these quickly. That's a group in chat. I don't want to do that. Only show default email when sending email invites. So whatever email address you have in there, I think that's actually hard-coded in. So it's going to be your ASU Write email address. Or it could be your first name dot last name email address. You can go and check that out. And I'm using HTML format in my Outlook plugin because I think that way all the links come through and people are able to click on the links in there rather than having to copy and paste it in. I also have selected to allow not only myself, but also participants to share their screen during meetings. So anybody right now can go in and share their screen and do a new screen share. Just kind of the way that we will operate on that, you would set your norms at the beginning of the meeting. If you're going to be having different people share their screens during the session, you would want to go over that in the beginning to say this is how we're going to behave in doing that. We'll ask to share your screen before you do it, and that is typically when everybody's on their own device and not typically when you're in a meeting like this where we have everybody in a conference room. The attention tracking, it lets everybody, or lets the host see an individual, an indicator in the participant panel to let us know who is actually the one who is talking, or what they're actually their attention. If they've gone off to some other page or they've wandered off and are doing something else, this will give you an indication of whether or not they are still paying attention to the meeting or doing something different. The waiting room is something that if you're going to use your personal meeting ID, some of the information that I've read suggests using the waiting room so that you don't have surprise drop-ins to your session. If you do use the waiting room, you can you can go ahead and put a logo in, you can put some different things in and put messages in so that when people arrive, you can say, hey, I may be in another meeting, or I've stepped away for a moment, please wait, I'll be right there, I've been notified that you're waiting. Some of that kind of a thing, but a waiting room, if you're gonna use your personal room ID, is a good idea to employ, because it gives you that privacy barrier and allows you to get permission for the person to join before so that you can finish up with your other meeting or whatever it is that you're doing before that, and before you let them in. But you do need to go in and let them in. You can also show a join from browser link in your meeting experience. I'm just going to kind of, the other thing, live streaming, and is this option available? It is. So if I want to allow live streaming, I can live stream with Facebook, Workplace by Facebook, YouTube, custom live streaming services. Use these very judiciously, but the option is there if you want to use it. Zoom is encrypted, and I think that's an important note to make. But if you go out and you share on Facebook and you do a live stream with Facebook, that is something that is now open and not encrypted, and provides some opportunities for information to get out that you may not want to be out. So if you do this, you do it very purposefully. You know what you're doing, you know what you're sharing, and you know all the concerns around that. So this is not something to take lightly. It is something that you can use, and it is an option if you just want to push information out and blast it out. So that is a possibility and capability that is available to you. So one of the settings that I have, if I'm recording a meeting, after that meeting, once I end the meeting, that recording takes a little while to process, and then I will receive a notification once that recording is available and ready for me. So, so those are a lot of the different kinds of things that we have available as far as how to do a meeting, how to run the meeting. The email notifications, how you want those set up are things that you'll want to kind of look at and play with. I have it notify me about just about everything. So one of the items that you'll notice is hard-coded by ASU is this blur snapshot on iOS taskbar switcher. So it is keeping that from being observed by anybody but you. So down at the very bottom of all of this is a scheduling privilege. I can provide a scheduling privilege to somebody else. So if I've got an admin, I've got a student worker, if I've got somebody else that I want to schedule meetings for me, I can provide schedule privileges to anybody that has an ASU Pro Zoom account. And they can go in and schedule things for me and get me set up. So with all that, I kind of got through those. It took me a while to get through all of those different settings, but those are the basic settings that you want to go through in your profile, in your settings. Make sure that you do those. It's important to be able to communicate well with Zoom so that you are, so you know what's going to happen when you're in a Zoom session. I'm going to take you back to the presentation now, and we're going to give you a couple of places that you can go to get additional help and additional support. And I will be posting these later. We don't yet have a place that we're posting those set up. So it'll be sometime down the road, but this information will be out there. But go to uto.asu.edu/Zoom. and you can get to links on different training, different support materials, different information about Zoom specific to ASU. And also, I noted throughout the presentation that Zoom has a very extensive support knowledge base. And so I encourage you to go out there and go through those. There are videos, there are templates, there are walkthroughs. They take you through pretty much anything and everything that has to do with Zoom in a very accessible way. So I encourage you to take a look at those and continue your learning about Zoom. We'll come back probably next semester and do some kind of a deeper dive into Zoom and some of the cool things that you can do with it, more than just how to set it up and run it. But hopefully this gave you some ideas of things that you can do and gave you places to go to set those up and get them ready. So before we go, I'll ask you this. Does anybody have any other questions? If you do out there on the other campuses, make sure you unmute because you're muted. I'm going to unmute you now. No, it's not allowing me. Well, yeah, there you go. Any questions out there? Polly?
No, but thank you.
Yeah, it was very good.
Yes.
Thanks.
Absolutely, happy to do it. Wes, do you guys have any questions?
No, thank you.
Hey, thank you guys for joining. Really very much appreciate your patience as we move through this and also staying 2 minutes after. So thank you all. You take care. Have a great day.